On what's happening in Syria, the situation there with Dr. Marcus Papadopoulus, an analyst from Britain's Politics First online magazine. Thanks very much for joining us. So, although NATO has repeatedly said it's not seeking military intervention in Syria, Paris now saying that humanitarian convoys that it wants to send to the country would need armed protection, which seems like it could be a prudent step, but do you think that also could be a slippery slope?
Well, I suspect that there are certain NATO member countries that would like to take military action against Syria. We have to remember that Syria is of immense geostrategic importance. Geographically, it's in the heart of the Middle East. Politically, it has so many different tentacles in so many different regions in the Middle East, in particular Lebanon. So if the chance was there for a Western government to come to power, then I think certainly NATO member states would be interested in bringing that about. However, I don't actually think military action will come about for a number of reasons. Firstly, any conflict in the Middle East has the potential to ignite the whole region into a ball of flames. Secondly, the Syrian military, it's not like the Libyan military. The Syrian military is one of the most powerful, one of the largest in the region, equipped with state-of-the-art weapon systems. So that would pose a potent threat to NATO aircraft. Thirdly, another reason I don't think there will be NATO intervention, and it's something that's neglected, certainly in the British press, is Russia's naval base at Tartus, which has been there since Soviet times. It was opened in the early 1970s. So in a scenario where, say, there was a NATO airstrike, ongoing NATO airstrike against Syria, what would happen if a missile was to strike against that Russian naval base at Tartus and a Russian serviceman was killed? I'm sure you can sort of see what I'm getting at. There would be the potential for a face-off between NATO and Russia.
Certainly all good points. So the news seems to be, though, tightening around President Assad's neck with mounting pressure from Arab as well as Western countries. Do you think we are yet to see another regime fall?
At the moment, it seems that the Syrian military is supporting President Assad. It seems that the generals, they are on board. There's no talk of a coup. However, if that was to change, then potentially we could see another Arab government, another Arab leader fall from power. But as I said, I don't believe that there will be NATO intervention. And what I'm getting at is this. It was NATO intervention in Libya which brought the NTC to power. Then it was NATO airstrikes that destroyed Gaddafi's command and control centres, pulverised his ground forces. They opened the door for the NTC forces, and all the NTC forces, which were completely incompetent when it came to fighting a war, all they had to do was walk through the door, which they did. So in regard to Syria, I don't believe there'll be military intervention. If there isn't military intervention, and providing the Syrian generals stay on board with President Assad's government, then I actually happen to think that he will prevail.
How do you think the West, especially France in this case, can be so sure that President Assad's departure will improve the situation and not lead to more chaos, bloodshed? After all, violence has returned to the streets of Egypt after the revolution that toppled President Mubarak there.
Yeah, certainly. I can't see how the West can be so sure that peace will come to the Middle East. I think, once again, we're looking at short-sighted objectives, and we've seen this before. We saw this going back to the 1980s with the Soviet-Afghan conflict, how the West, principally America, Britain and France, they got into bed with the Mujahideen simply to defeat the Soviet army, but they never asked themselves, who are they actually involving themselves with? So, if we fast forward 20-odd years or so to Syria, I can't see how they can possibly believe that peace will come to the Middle East with President Assad falling. I mean, if we have a look at some of the people that the Syrian government is fighting against at the moment, they're actually armed militants, they're criminal gangs, and many of these armed militants have links to religious extremism. So once again, I think it's a reckless, negligent, short-sighted approach that the West is taking. But I'd also like to make one other point about France, and it's something that's being overlooked.
Briefly, please, because we're kind of running out of time.
Yeah, OK, if you look at the second half of the 20th century, it was a humiliating time for France. They were kicked out of Indochina. They were occupied by Nazi Germany during the Second World War, had to be liberated by foreign armies. They were kicked out of Algeria. I think this is an attempt at France to regain some prestige on the international arena.
All right, thanks very much. I have to leave it there. Marcus Papadopoulos, analyst from Britain's Politics First magazine, thanks very much.
Thank you very much.